Hello everyone! Welcome back to me
Hello
talking.
everyone!
Oh,
Welcome back
there's
to
an echo.
me
Great.
Hello everyone!
Oh
Welcome
god! Oh
back
god! Oh
to
god! An echo.
me
Great.
Hello everyone!
Oh
Welcome
god! Oh
back
god! Oh
to
god! An echo.
me.
Great. Okay, right. Welcome back to me talking not over myself, but to you about LGBT rights around the world. How exciting! Um, there's no more looping audio, which is good. At least I hope you can't hear it anymore. Um, how's everyone doing? I am doing all right, actually. Um, yeah, I know. Sorry, there was an echo for 1 second. Oh, I've just realised I got a bruise here. I don't know what that's from. Looks like I've been bitten by a vampire or something on the shoulder, which is probably not the best place to bite. This is getting out of hand. No, there are two of them. That's a Star Wars quote. I know that one. Um, Katrina's saying, we have rights in the US. Yes, you still have rights. For now. No, you do still have rights. And in fact, we're going to cover some positives. We've got a few positives this week. It's a bit more positive than last week. We've got some idiot transphobes to laugh at, and then they lost. And then we saw Trump losing some stuff. And then we saw some news that got reported being wrong. And then we got some more dunking on the cast review. Then we've got some bad stuff. So there is definitely some bad stuff coming. We can't do an episode of Turf Wars without there being bad stuff because hooray, it's the 21st century and this is the century of hating trans people being a personality type. Then we do have some more good news from around the world. We've got a few things on Poland this week. So shout out to any Polish people in the chat. We're covering the USA, the UK, the two that I always talk about, and Poland. And then we're dunking on J.K. Rowling, and then we are finishing with my favourite. We haven't covered it in a while, some transvestigations. And we got some top tier transvestigation content coming right up. If you don't know what transvestigation is, I'm not going to tell you. You're just going to have to wait. But I assure you, transvestigation is the best type of transphobia. And that might not sound very alluring to people. But when the world is this transphobic, you have to get some joy out of it. And there are some examples of transphobia that at least I find utterly hilarious. And they're just so good. And we have an S tier one coming up for you. So yeah, should be pretty decent. While everyone's showing up and saying hello, I just thought I should put this in the description. Hang on, let me just do that before I announce it. Where's the edit? This week. So if you go to the YouTube description, I'll jam it in the Twitch chat as well. Which I closed because it was echoing. So we have this petition, which is going around, which just hit 100,000 signatures, which is to decriminalize abortion in the UK. So we do actually have reasonable abortion access in the UK, but then this is the classic difference between legal, decriminalized, criminalized, and unregulated, and all of these words have very specific meanings. Basically, in the UK there are laws which can make abortions in certain circumstances criminal, and that's bad. So this is a petition from someone calling to end it, and you can still sign this. We have reached 100 signatures. That is one of the goals of this, but I think it's good to get momentum behind these things. So let's just read the petition. I'm calling on the UK government to remove abortion from criminal law so that no pregnant person can be criminalized for procuring their own abortion. Good argument, good point. This should be the case everywhere in the world. The UK is out of step with the World Health Organization in 2022 recommended that barriers to abortion such as criminalization or approval of others or institutions should be removed. Absolutely. Amnesty International, J.K. Rowling's enemy, state that abortion is a human rights issue. True. It's a good petition. It says exactly what it wants, and it's got 100,000 signatures. I have signed it, but I'm not logged into my Google here. And of course, the government's just responded with all their rubbish. And notice, I mean, both of these things could be one of those things where people say them interchangeably without thinking. But I don't think it's a coincidence that the person who wrote the petition wrote no pregnant person and the government responded with all women. Obviously, the vast majority of people who need abortions are women, but that's not always the case. But anyway, they said all women have a right to access safe legal abortions on the NHS, which is good. And that is, true enough. And that is a good thing in the UK. But here they say all women have access to safe abortions in the UK in a medical setting and at home where eligible. In England and Wales, the Abortion Act 1967 defines a criteria under which legal terminations can take place. This is the problem, and what the World Health Organization was calling out, and which is the point of this petition, is that it's still regulated by criminal law, and you can do something wrong and end up in legal trouble for taking control of your own body in future and having an abortion, which is bad. The criminal law in relation to procuring an abortion is contained on the Offences Against the Person Act 1861, in particular sections 58 and 59. At this moment, the government has no plans to make changes to these acts. So the reason why it's important is you could say, well, this is very rarely used and most people in the UK who need access to abortions can get it, and they can get it free on the NHS, which is good. But as we know, the global right is moving towards banning abortion whenever they can everywhere, as we've seen in the US. And that is coming to the UK. We are seeing them ramp up their funds and their efforts to sell the idea of this. At the moment, it's very unpopular in the UK, but as we've seen in the US, they just keep pushing, and then they do this legal lawfare thing where they just keep doing these legal cases like the gender critical movement's doing. It's the same strategy, but by the same people, to keep pushing on it until they finally manage to break through and cause this big problem. And when it's controlled by criminal law, then there's just more avenue for them to find loopholes and cracks in the the armor and stuff, and then there's just a bigger vector to attack this in future. And also, no one should be criminalized for having an abortion just because they don't follow these criteria anyway. So, yeah, you can sign this. They will almost certainly do nothing. But what they do need to do is they need to debate it in Parliament. So that's something that's worth pushing for, even though very unlikely anything will happen. Phoebe saying rape within marriage was legal until not that long ago, I believe. Yeah, actually, I don't know what year that was changed. I think it was a while ago. Oh God, rape in marriage became illegal in the UK in 1991. Goodness, before 92, so that's in my lifetime, forced sexual activity within a marriage wasn't illegal in the UK. Yeah, this is obviously that's horrific. It's kind of surprised me how recent that was. But this is still the case in lots of countries around the world where they just don't consider raping your spouse to be even a moral problem, let alone a legal problem. And you see this argument brought up a lot from when arguing about trans rights. It's a gender critical's favorite is to use the very specific legal definition of rape in order to make their garbage political points. Often what they will say is, like for a while ago, we saw a newspaper article saying there were like thousands of trans women rapists in British jails, which just isn't true because there aren't thousands of trans people in jail in the UK because there's so few of us. But the reasoning they had used was the specific legal definition of rape in the UK says that only a man can rape a woman and a woman can't, and a woman who rapes a woman just counts as form of sexual assault, which doesn't meet the legal definition of rape, even though obviously it can still be rape. And then some women in prison, thousands, were actually charged with rape, and then they said, oh well, they must all be trans then because trans women are men and therefore they're the only people who can rape. But actually, in a lot of cases, when a rape happens, it's actually a group of people, and if one of those people was a woman involved in it, they will be charged under that crime, even though they're the one who didn't necessarily do the act. But you see gender criticals making these like, oh, if it doesn't meet the legal definition of rape, then it isn't rape arguments in order to just attack trans women. But then that's directly like using the argument of these people who defend who want raping your spouse to be legal, because they just want to change the law, and then they say, oh, it's not rape now because it's not against the law, which it wasn't in the UK until 1991. So I mean, do the gender criticals really want to be consistent and say no wives were raped until 1991? Like, is that a fact they stick to? Who knows? They don't care. They don't care about whether they're consistent or not. Nothing about the gender critical movement matters whether it's consistent or not. It's not internally consistent, and they do not give a fuck. They will just use whatever argument that comes to their mind in the moment, whatever's convenient. Same with all like fascist aligned movements, but it's something worth knowing about, I guess. Anyway, that wasn't what I was going to talk about. Maybe we can get on to our first discussion of the week. So, is this the one I want to talk about first? Yeah, let's do this one. I've got a few things to cover on this. So, I don't know if you saw this clip going around, but this is Tommy Tuberville, which is a great name. It's like a comic book name. And let's just watch this clip of him being absolutely delusional.
But we're getting to a point now where women and girls sports are getting ready to be extinct, because already in states across this country, we have high school teams that are made up of totally boys participating against girls. So it's very serious. Hopefully we can get something done today. But President Trump's executive order is only going to last, John, 4 years. After that, it'll probably go the other way.
So this is a man who was pushing for in the US Senate a bill to ban trans women and girls from sport across the entire of the USA. And this like cartoon comic book villain, Tommy Tuberville, believes apparently that there are teams in the USA, at what level we don't know, who are entirely trans girls. It's just so ridiculous. I mean, I remember I actually did a show about it a while ago, and we had one of the guys who was involved on it a while ago. There was a sports game in the UK played of football or soccer, where it was a whole team, like 11 people who were all trans men. And they traveled from like across the entire country just to find 11 trans guys who all played football at the same time, like against some other team. And it was like a big news media event. And the idea that there's like multiple states in the US which haven't like, I don't know what, of like shit people in around from across the whole state to find all of one age group and one ability level, all trans girls, to play sport or something. Like, it's just so mental. Like, who the fuck believes this? And the thing is, I'm sure this guy does believe it. Like, because they will believe anything about negative about trans people. It's like this cat litter in the schools thing, where some friends' mums, boyfriends, uncles, cats, dogs, wife's nephew went to a school where apparently the kids were identifying as cats, so they put cat litter so they could do a wee or something. Obviously false. Anyone with an IQ above single digit knows that that's just completely made up rubbish. But if you hate trans people, then as soon as you hear something even slightly in the direction of confirming your previously held biases, your brain just switches off. It doesn't matter how true it could be. It's true enough to you, so you just believe it. This guy probably heard from someone once, oh, they've got whole teams now that are just trans people. Or someone said it in a hyperbolic way, like, in the future, they'll probably have whole teams. And then he's just bought that as a fact, to the point where he's prepared to go in front of the entire country, like whatever you have in the USA, 300 million people or something, and say this as a fact. Delusional. This man should not be in power anywhere. If he's this gullible, this stupid, this like willing to do things with no evidence, then he shouldn't be in power of anywhere at all. So yeah, absolutely mental. But you know, standard anti-trans, gender critical belief that this kind of thing is true. Anyway, he was pushing for this bill, and amazingly, the Democrats did something, and they blocked the bill to ban trans athletes, which is good. Kind of surprising to see the Democrats doing something. But the vote was actually 51 to 45, which is super close. And they needed 60 votes. And basically everyone bar 5 people voted, and all the Democrats voted against, and all the Republicans voted for, as I presume always happens with every single bill about this. But, well, actually, no, that's not true. I think we were worried that lots of the Democrats would just either not bother voting or would vote in favor of banning trans people. I know we've heard a lot of these, like, pundits, columnists, opinion writers and stuff saying that the reason the Democrats lost is because they didn't hate trans people enough. And it's good to see that when it actually comes to it, the politicians themselves aren't believing that. I've seen a lot of talk of people saying that they rang up their representatives and explained how this bill would hurt them, hurt their child, hurt their friend, you know, hurt the people in their school or the kids they teach, and managed to get through to people. So I think that shows the importance of pressuring them to do stuff. And I think that's this is quite positive. This is like the first step, like it's the first major legal bill pushed forward by in Trump's term this time round, and the Democrats have actually all stood up and done something about it. So that is positive. That is a good sign. If they crumbled at this first one, which they could have easily done, because sports is obviously one of the more difficult issues to stand by, even though banning like 3 trans girls from PE in school in Missouri or somewhere actually is completely unjustifiable nonsense. But people are weak on this issue. So they could have easily dropped it, but they didn't. And there's some quotes here. Obviously, some of them are going for the this doesn't matter, it's a waste of time angle, which So, for example, John Hickenlooper, that's a good name too. You have some good names in the US. Tuberville is trying to churn the social wars about something that really doesn't exist. It's an infinitesimally small group of people that are really trying to find their ways. That's true. It's a decent statement. John Fetterman said the children deserve an ally, and empty show votes or cruelty on social media aren't part of a thoughtful, dignified solution. But there's some positive things, but there's definitely some people saying this is a waste of time. I think if you genuinely believe it's a waste of time and you vote accordingly to just be like, no, get rid of this, that's not terrible. Obviously, you're not someone who's campaigning to remove trans people's rights. But trans people are humans, and it shouldn't really be a waste of your time to fight to have us have human rights. But it's fine. If you're someone who doesn't believe that and you say that because you think it's a politically better message than saying trans people should actually be able to do PE at school, I think that's a kind of rubbish position, because you might be like, oh yeah, well, most people don't care about trans people. True. You can say this is a waste of time because this doesn't affect anyone. But it would also be good if you then finished off with, this is a waste of time. These people are trying to distract from Elon Musk stealing money from the government. I'm going to vote against it. And also, banning children from playing sports at school is a bad, immoral thing to do. Like, just add that on, because as this article points out, according to this poll at least, 79% of Americans opposed trans women and girls from competing in women's sports. That's because there's just been absolutely no messaging from any of the centre-left parties in the English-speaking world at all saying why trans people should be able to do sport. Like, they stay well away from it. They're terrified of having to defend it on the news. But it's a quite easy position to defend. You should be able to say the elite level sporting organisations should be able to make their own rules based on the science. The government shouldn't rule on that. When it comes to wider policy, such as schools and like after school clubs and stuff, then trans people should be able to participate in them. They're clearly not a danger. It's clearly not an actual problem. There's not like whole teams made up of trans girls or anything. And even if there was like a team where all the trans girls in the entire country came to all play together, I mean, so what? 99.9% of all sports is just done recreationally or at school or, in clubs it's like a hobby for most people. That's not a problem. I mean, oh no, there's a whole team of trans girls and they travelled across the entire country just to play on some football team, and then they won 1-0 against a team of cis women. Like, we need to eradicate trans people right now. Like, so what? It just does not matter. And I think that's quite an easy position to argue for. So that's what they should be doing. But anyway, this Tommy Tuberville guy, he did actually say in that clip that he's gonna do more, and as soon as Trump goes, this executive order's going, which I'm glad that he's feeling pessimistic, because that's good for us. But he's obviously gonna keep going, and he says, this is far from over. I'll never stop fighting to protect women and girls. And when a right-wing man says that, the first thing you should do is look up their history on protecting women and girls. And what's that? Tommy Tuberville. Oh no, okay. And what's that? If you go on his page, on his thing, one of his top issues is being anti-abortion, because obviously he doesn't give a fuck about women and girls. He wants to control them. And if you go on this, and you can see he's just recently been defending Pete Hegseth. Sorry, I don't watch any American news. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce this. Who has been accused of sexual assault. And he doesn't seem to care about that at all, because why would he? Actually, on his anti-abortion position, he cared so much about abortion that he was willing to blockade 400 military promotions. Like, he basically found a way of causing a scene and said, I'm not going to do my duty until the country takes issue and starts banning abortion. And he ended up being the last holdout and had to cave because other Republicans were pressuring him to give in. It says here, more than 400 military nominations have been in limbo due to his blanket hold on confirmations and promotions for senior military officers. It's a stance that has left key national security positions unfilled and military families without an uncertain path forwards. And this was based on how much he hates women and girls having control of their own bodies. So it's not just like he's a mild, he doesn't really like abortion. This guy's a fucking dedicated anti-women's rights activist. Okay? That's one of his core beliefs. On his page, it's one of his top things. It's like one of his top 10 issues. He's willing to sacrifice his reputation amongst other Republicans to hurt women and girls. And here he is claiming that what he's actually doing is protecting them, because that's what all these fucking losers say, and it is never true. And The Guardian obviously is going to go out of its way to avoid pointing out that the anti-trans movement and the anti-women's rights movement are like the same thing. But I think that all reporters should be doing this. Whenever they say, obviously quote these guys, you should let them have their say. When it says, Tuberville, a former college football coach and dedicated anti-women's rights activist, remained to fight after the defeat, posting on social media. Like, that should be that's a basic journalism, right? Anyway, it is good that they banned the bill, and we've just got to hope that the Democrats are ready to stand up for trans people further. And we're also got to hope that there are more elections in the future so that Tommy Tuberville's negative opinion that in 4 years when Donald Trump's executive order gets overruled, that will be it. We'll see. Oops, sorry. The UK Guardian are dog shit on trans people, yeah. The US one, there's at least a couple of US feminist writers for the US Guardian, which is they who do good articles, which is pretty good. We actually had a positive Guardian article this week in the UK Guardian, but I was going to cover it, but I decided I couldn't fit it in. So we've got another thing on Trump. Or maybe I was going to merge it in with the last one, but I haven't. So I just seen this from the ACLU, who say, breaking, a judge blocked President Trump's executive order targeting access to gender-affirming care for trans people under 19 years old nationwide. This is the second time this discriminatory executive order has been put on hold in our legal challenge against it. So great work for the ACLU. And this article, which was very recent, says, judge orders nationwide block on Trump's transgender youth healthcare policy. A federal judge has extended a nationwide block on President Donald Trump's executive orders halting federal funds for providers of gender-affirming healthcare for trans people under age 19. So it's a little bit of a double negative here, but basically a judge has said, Trump, you can't ban trans healthcare for 19 and under. I actually think here they were targeting 19 and under and not just under 19. Oh no, it was 8. Yeah, okay, included 18-year-olds. Basically, it was interesting to see that they had picked 19 rather than 18 and they had targeted adults. But yeah, a federal judge has extended a nationwide block from Tuesday on President Trump's executive orders halting the funds. And it comes from a lawsuit filed earlier this month on behalf of families with trans and non-binary children who allege their healthcare has already been compromised by the president's orders. So some stuff is still positive in the courts in the USA, which is good. That's a couple of legal wins now. What happens from here, I don't know. Potentially, the Trump government is like, well, fuck the courts. We're just going to do it anyway. potentially they will just target the few judges who are standing up to him and annihilate their reputation, pull them out of their thing, and then just replace them with someone else, and then just have a new ruling. It's hard to know how extreme things are going to get in the US, but at least for now, this is positive. I think I do agree. We were talking a little bit about it last week, but I do agree with this. No one's coming to save you. This isn't going to stop without people doing something. It's not like, oh, we're waiting to see if someone managed to slam on the brakes before it reaches the edge of the cliff, and then if so, that person has saved you, or it's like Superman going to fly down and stop the car from going over the edge. You have to fucking dive out and do something about it, because some of these judges are going to do the right thing. Some of them are not going to do the right thing. When it gets to the Supreme Court, possibly, likely, they're not going to do the right thing. And then what? Are you just going to give up? No. I don't think... I know we were just looking at something where the Democrats did do something. And sometimes also in other countries, like here in the UK, sometimes politicians do something. But it is not enough. You cannot expect them to just do the right thing. I mean, we just saw with the last thing, actually, where we're seeing that some of the Democrats have been pressured to supporting trans people by people ringing them up and demanding to talk to them and pressuring them. And that's what we need to do. We need to do that in the USA and in the UK and everywhere. Because if you're just sitting at home hoping a politician's going to do the right thing, you need to know that there are anti-trans people giving them money, calling them up, meeting them for lunch, all this kind of rubbish, and applying their pressure. So we need to apply it back. Oh, got a super chat. $9.99 from Jeff. Last week I asked about moderate voices. I realise you are moderate, but some are not. Presentation matters. You catch more flies with honey as opposed to vinegar. Yeah, I mean, some people are not moderates. That is true. There are some trans people, I'm sure there are trans people who think that all cis people should be fired into the sun or something. But the thing is, they don't represent the trans rights movement. I mean, I don't represent the trans rights movement, but they are not representative in that they do not hold a common position that is held by most trans people. From what I know, most of what I'm arguing, at least amongst most English-speaking trans people, is not that controversial, because I don't seem to get much flack from trans people, and most of the flack I get is from people who have dedicated their lives to hating trans people. So, yeah, where my position is representative or not, anyway, that's not really what I'm arguing, but the point is you can always find extremists for any movement, and it's the same in other civil rights movements. For example, the suffragettes. The suffragettes were, in case you didn't know, the group in the UK who fought for women's rights to vote specifically. So at one point in our history, women weren't allowed to vote, and then the suffragettes were part of, not the whole movement, but part of the movement to campaign for women to have the right to vote, and then eventually, obviously, women did get the right to vote. But there was a range of views in that time. There were people who were writing writing letters into newspapers and stuff, or pressuring people behind the scenes, or doing speeches and peaceful protests. But the suffragettes, I don't know if you knew this, the suffragettes invented the mail bomb. They, one time, threw an axe at the head of the Prime Minister. One of them, very famously, ran in front of the King's racehorse during a horse race and died. There were extreme people in the suffragettes movement, and I don't condone throwing an axe at the head of any legally representative, certainly not the Prime Minister, but they did it. And does that mean that we should go around saying to women who are campaigning for their right to vote, oh, you know, some of you should be more moderate, and there are some extremists. Like, of course, there are some people with extreme views. There are always people with extreme views. But what's important is the point they're arguing for is morally correct. So rather than being like, oh, why aren't you arguing this the right way? Why don't you argue in the way that you think is best for you, like I do, and then make the best arguments, and hopefully there won't be the need, people won't feel pressured and backed into a corner to the point where they invent the male bomb or throw an axe at the Prime Minister. Because people, you know, everyone has a point at which if they are pushed enough, they will feel so trapped that they'll do something bad and potentially violent. And for some people, that pressure is barely any pressure at all, and they are often bad people. But for, you know, at some point, people campaigning for political causes, when they feel like they're not being listened to, will step up to the next level. Whereas if more people start making the arguments and pushing more together for these policies which are morally correct, women should be allowed to vote, then they'll feel less pressured to do things like throw an axe at the Prime Minister. So what I'm saying is, if you think there are some trans people who are too extreme, then listen to their position, or work out what the positions are. Work out what you think the correct positions are, and advocate for those. And like, what is morally correct? And someone might say, "Oh, but you're making the same argument as this extremist." Well, who cares what this extremist says and thinks? Like, if they're also arguing to like blow up the moon or something, then they're wrong. But the point is, the moral position I'm arguing for, trans people should be allowed jobs in the government. Trans people should be able to work in the military. Trans people shouldn't be banned from public facilities. They should be allowed to do sport at school. Like, all of these things are just morally true, regardless of who's arguing them. I hope that was a good explanation. I did also just see a very kind super chat go past that I feel like I should find. Yes, it's here. So from Simon White, £50. That is incredibly kind, Simon. Thank you very much. Simon says, "Hi Katie, I only recently found your channel. As someone who's just coming out as trans, I want to say thank you. Love your weekly live streams, Deb." Okay. Thank you very much, Deb. Sorry for reading out what I presume is your dead name to start. That is how YouTube has brought it up. If you don't want me to have read that out, then message me on Blue Sky and I can edit this part out of the live stream. But thank you very much for that very kind donation, and I'm glad that you find this show useful or not terrible. Oh, Jeff has responded. "I guess what I am getting at here is there are some people who claim to be trans when in fact they are not. Some want attention, some want to be part of a group, and others may want money/attention." If someone wants money and they're pretending to be trans, then I say let them do it, because they're not going to last 5 minutes before they realise they're not getting any fucking money. This might be the wrong time to say that after someone has just very kindly donated me £50. But I assure you, the time that I spend arguing for trans rights is not financially worthwhile for me. Most of the videos I upload to YouTube make like £4 total, and I get some very kind super chats spread out, but for the amount of work and effort I put in, it's nothing. Even some of the people who are like trans activists full time, they only get there by being very dedicated, working an insane amount, getting horrific amounts of abuse and threats. And even then, how much do they earn? Not much. There is not much money in fighting for trans rights. There's certainly not much money in being trans. Like, being trans alone is not enough to get anything apart from abuse. There might be people who say they're trans for attention. You know, perhaps someone comes out as LGBT and then like isn't or whatever. But I mean, what attention are they going to get? They're going to get a lot of negative attention very quickly. they might get some positive attention from some people, like in their local surrounding circles or something, but as soon as someone realizes it's not genuine, then they're just gonna get negative attention. But also, I just don't like, what do people get out of it? You get a lot out of saying you're cis when you're actually trans, because you avoid a lot of abuse if no one thinks you're trans. You have more human rights if you're a cis person. What benefit do trans people? What benefit would a cis person get from pretending to be trans? Like, literally nothing. Like, we have less rights, more likely to be homeless, more likely to be abused, more likely to be murdered, less likely to be taken seriously. And the benefit, like, literally the only benefits of, there's no, the benefit, okay, there are some benefits to being trans. I wouldn't want to say being trans is a negative experience all round. But the benefits that come from being trans are things like, I have had to confront and analyze who I am and what my body means to me and how I want to live my life and whether I should obey society's rules and stuff so deeply that it's made me a stronger person because of it. I now realize when there are bullshit gender roles being pushed on people and stuff, like, so obvious to me, and it's like almost effortless for me to navigate through these situations because I've thought about it for literally tens of thousands of hours. So that, like, things like that are the benefits of being trans. And the benefits of transitioning are that I'm much happier with my body and how I present to the world and stuff. But there's no, like, external benefits to being trans. It's just easier to not be trans. So yeah, I just simply do not believe that anyone is, certainly no one is medically transitioning when they're not trans for any length of time without massively regretting it. And no one is saying they're trans other than maybe, you know, one of these, oh, actually, my friend's cousin actually taught at school where someone said they were trans and then 3 weeks later they realized they weren't. And it seemed really not genuine, and maybe, but like name one fucking person who has benefited. Name one fucking cis person who has benefited from saying they're trans. Anyway, I'm doing a rant, and I think we need to move on to the next thing. So, the next thing we are going to look at. Do you remember a while ago, February? Gosh, that was so long ago. 2 whole weeks, or maybe even 1 week. 2 whole weeks, nearly. LBC came out with doctors who change gender have wrongdoing erased from public record. GMC admits. Doctors who change gender are having their medical records scrubbed, the General Medical Council has admitted. So the General Medical Council is like the body in the UK which regulates doctors. Following the discovery, Health Secretary Wes Streeting was seen to condemn the wiping of doctors' records, labelling the practice as extremely concerning. And then, obviously, they need to talk about gender-critical activist and bully Sandy Peggy, and the case that they've got harassing Dr. Beth Upton at the moment for just getting changed at work. And apparently there was a whistleblower. Anyway, I think this is one of these things. Like, when I first read this, I was like, well, firstly, I bet this isn't true. But were it true, this would be bad. But even if it is true, and it is obviously bad, people like Wes Streeting and the British right-wing press are going to make a massive deal out of this when actually it's a fairly easy, uncontroversial change, but they're going to try and use it to remove trans people's rights further. For example, instantly linking it to this lady who is trying to bully her colleague out of doing her job, which is actually nothing to do with this at all, and it's just going to be used to generally stir anti-trans sentiment even further in the UK. So my initial suspicion was completely correct. So the GMC wrote a letter, which we can see here. It says, "Dear Secretary of State, we saw your comments in the media today about your expectations of the GMC to provide patient transparency while maintaining the Protections Equality Act. The report suggests that we treat doctors who have changed gender differently in respect of their fitness to practice history, leaving patients at risk. I would like to reassure you that this is not the case. It's a complex area, blah, blah, blah. When a doctor transitions, they receive a new GMC number," which is what the argument that LBC here was making. They were saying that the GMC, which regulates doctors, has admitted that doctors who are changing gender are handed a brand new registration number, meaning past histories of incidents, concerns, or wrongdoing are no longer visible on their new record. So the letter here says they do receive a new number, but their fitness to practice history and any risk they may still present to the public attaches to an individual and remains the same whether or not their gender identity changes. I mean, okay, obviously, right? Like, when you get a new number and a new name and a new gender, they don't wipe your entire employment record. Like, what sense would that make? Like, maybe there is a company out there where that has happened, and that is clearly dumb. But, like, that would be terrible. I mean, that would be bad for trans people too, because you would want all of your record to still be there, but also it'd be bad for trans patients, because, like, it would be terrible. I feel like this is just a common sense, obvious issue that if you've had complaints against you as a doctor and you transition, you should not, that should still follow you around just like it does anyone else. But that is the case. And they've just totally made this up. Like, it's just a total nonsense, fake story that, of course, Wes Streeting had to comment on. And are they going to correct, like, are LBC going to say, oh, actually, turns out the thing we reported on 2 weeks ago was wrong. Apologies, we got it wrong. The anti-trans sentiment stirred from this. We can back off. Is Wes Streeting going to say, oh, actually, turns out that it's not extremely concerning and we don't need to do anything about it because the whole story is wrong? No, of course they're not going to do that. LBC isn't going to publish a new article. The Telegraph isn't going to publish a new article. They're not going to issue an apology. Wes Streeting isn't going to comment on it at all. And it's just now going to be one of those things where you're talking to a gender critical person and they'll say, when you transition at work, if you're an abuser, then you get a new whatever. And that's just going to be a fact to them. And unless you know specifically what they're talking about, it's going to be hard to argue against. And like, so much of the anti-trans stuff is this. One of the newspapers just makes something up, doesn't bother fact checking. Like, why didn't they reach out to the GMC, like, first? Before they published this article? Doesn't matter. They just published something that's just completely false. And then the politicians who hate trans people comment on it. And then there's a new story about them commenting on it. Then it turns out it was all false. And then that's it. It's just so frustrating. Why is the British media so shit and so keen to write terrible things about trans people and the laws around us and so unwilling to do any basic journalism at all or to, like, correct themselves when they're wrong? That's just ridiculous. Yeah. So, let's talk about this one next. So, actually, we could talk about this one, just seeing what people are talking about in chat. So, relevant to the last one, or maybe I'll blend it together, who knows. But Lee here from the Trans Agenda, which is like a news aggregation service for trans news, which you should go and subscribe to and check out, has pointed out that what seems to be standard practice now for trans people is if someone at your work is gender critical and they target you for a lawsuit, even though it's not your fault because you're just following the law and just doing your job, that a judge will rule that it's okay for the national press to print your identity. So, like, this is terrifying and clearly immoral. So the situation that's happened both for Dr. Beth Upton and then obviously for Rose Henderson here is they are just doing their jobs. So they just, doing things as they normally do. And like Dr. Beth Upton has worked at places previous to where she's employed currently. So it's just like, imagine you're doing your job and then you get a new job and you're doing that. And then you get a new job and you're doing that. And then one day someone at your work irrationally hates something you are. They're like, oh, you're disgusting because you're trans or you're gay or you're, person of color or something. I don't like you and I'm going to cause a big fuss and bring a legal case. And actually, there's a hate group with unlimited money who is going to back my legal case. And you just be like, what the fuck? What have I done? Like, I'm just existing here. I'm just doing my job. Are you accusing me of not doing my job properly? No. You're accusing me of basically being disgusting. And then it goes to a legal thing and you say, okay, well, seeing as we know the news targets people like me and tries to ruin our lives and makes us this big international issue, and I'm going to get loads of threats if they publish my name. Can you not publish my name? And then the judge is like, nah, don't care. This is like here, Sharon Langridge, an employment judge, ruled last week that there was no evidence for claims that reporting the full name will cause harm. I mean, that's just trivially false. There's literally another case going on exactly like this right now where we're seeing harm against this innocent trans person at the center of it, who's being targeted by the news, by celebrity billionaires, by all these hate groups who are trying to ruin her life and who are writing all kinds of disgusting things about her on a national stage. It's literally happening right now. If you're reading the newspapers, you would see there's evidence of harm being caused. I'd be shocked if Dr. Beth Upton hadn't had threats against her safety. So, yeah, it feels like, at least to me, that it's part of the strategy. They know that the Equality Act currently supports trans people to use the right facilities at work. And so obviously part of the strategy is to just throw so many different legal cases that maybe one day they'll get a transphobic judge who rules the wrong way. But also, if they can't change the law, what they can do is pick out random trans people and ruin their lives, destroy them. And then other trans people might be too scared to come out, or might be too scared to, if they get in this situation, they'll just instantly quit their job and go somewhere else and hope they can find one without a transphobic person there. But that kind of thing, and I was just seeing some people in chat saying they were scared to come out because of this kind of thing. That is exactly what they want. And that is why, at least, I'm not going to blame anyone who's terrified to come out. If you're terrified to come out, that is a reasonable response. And if you're someone who's recently come out, you're terrified of this, or if you're someone who's been out for, 5 times longer than I have, then congratulations on reaching 100, I guess, or whatever. I don't know how would that make you. But anyway, if you're someone wherever you are in coming out, if you're afraid, that's reasonable. But I personally am not going to let this, the fear they're trying to push on us. I'm not going to let it affect my life. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to live in fear of these fucking freaks trying to ruin trans people's lives. I'm not going to stop living a normal, happy life to the best of my ability just because there are these hate groups out there trying to target people. I have been targeted by the anti-trans hate movement. I've had all kinds of horrific things. and some of them have been like genuinely overwhelming at the time. But I'm still here, and I'm not going to stop being here, and I'm still going to carry on living my life and just doing a normal thing that every other single fucking person in the country does. So they can just fuck off. Like if you are like, okay, if you are Dr. Beth Upton or Rose Henderson, and you're watching this, then hello, please contact me. I'd love to talk to you. Or if you don't like me, talk to a different trans journalist who you trust, and get your story out as well, and point out the horrible abuse that you're facing and stuff, so that judges in future know about this. But also know that there are so many people out there who support you. Probably everyone in this chat, probably everyone in the comments, probably everyone watching these videos will have your back. There are trans rights organizations like Transaxle and various other ones who will have your back, and the law is on your side. So yes, they might try and make might try and make you their hate target of the month and try and ruin your life, but you're not going to let them do that, and we're not going to let them do that, and you're going to be strong and get through it, and then you're going to make the world better for other trans people. So yeah, like fuck this whole situation. It's like so, like, on the surface, transparently disgusting. A bunch of bigots hate someone because they were born different. The judge says, oh yeah, you can put their name in the newspaper, and then the newspapers try and destroy their lives. Like, it's disgusting. Do not let it scare you into not coming out or something. Yeah, getting into rant mode now. How's everyone in chat doing? It is scary being out. But to me personally, the idea of being in a closet is worse, like significantly worse. So it's a bad time to be born trans. Like, unlucky mate, you rolled a 1 on a d20 or something, but better now than in a time where trans people weren't having their voices shared and you weren't able to find other trans people and talk to them, build community. Better now than in times when trans healthcare was non-existent or inaccessible or like prohibitively dangerous. So yeah, we've just got to, better now than various other times in history when it's been terrible to be a trans person, and we just got to fight to make it better for everyone else. Only 34 likes. Come on, guys, what's going on? Let's have a look. Do we really only have 34? We've got a couple more good things to come up, and we have... I'm just checking if it's actually 34. Oh, sorry, that's an advert. 127, my one says, but that's only half of you. Are the other half gender criticals? Is that what's going on? Do I have half my show hate watchers? Well, actually, if I do, then I hope you'll watch it. I hope gender critical people watch my show and then grumble about how they can't respond to any of my arguments. That'd be good. I noticed I got a $20 super chat from Duck. Thank you very much. That was very kind. From an asexual cis counterpart. He/him. Hang in there, my trans blings. You're all valid and beautiful. Hey, not all of us are beautiful. Some. No, yeah. Beautiful people. Right. The next thing we are going to talk about is... yet another country has done a review of trans healthcare for young people and realized that trans healthcare for young people is good, and they are going to continue to recommend it. This time, Poland. So we've already seen, oh man, I can't even remember all the countries. I think the last one we looked at was France. Basically, every single country that has done a review of trans healthcare for under 18s recently has concluded the exact opposite of the UK. there's not actually an article on this at all. This is reported where I found out from Dr. Cal Horton, who is worth following on Blue Sky. But like this is quite major European news for trans healthcare. I couldn't even find a blog about it. Like, if you're someone like this is why this is something. Just a quick little side note here. Something like I've been trying to push recently on this show is we need more people doing things. If you're someone who's watching this and you're like, oh, I really want to help trans rights, but I'm not good at doing what Katie does, and I don't have much money, and I don't know how, I'm not good at talking to politicians. Maybe you're someone who is good at writing articles. And you might be like, oh, yeah, but I'm not employed by The Guardian, so no one's... It would be great if you were someone who is an honest journalist who just start like one of these free like Medium or Substack or blog or whatever, and then you just, when you see things like this, just go and do a bit more research and write a proper article. That would be amazing. Like, source it all, do it properly, because we need more of that kind of stuff. Like, the right wing and the anti-trans movement have their own little alternate ecosystem of news where, like, you know, like Redux and stuff, where they can write like the most insane fucking bullshit you've ever seen, and then the mainstream news is gonna write kind of centrist but anti-trans positions. So where's the like positive, factually correct positions? Anyway, I couldn't find an article on this. Maybe there's one now. But what we can do is look at the actual report. The actual report is quite long. We're not going to look at the whole thing. 28 pages. But we can look at the abstract at least. And then there was definitely one worth highlighting. But so this is signed by quite a lot of people here. As you can see, a lot of doctors have put their name to this, and experts, and a lot of organizations. Like a huge page load of them. I guess 40... Or maybe it says which ones they're part of and stuff. 1 second. Sorry, I had something stuck on my vocal cords. Oh. Right. Hopefully I'll remember to edit this bit out. We'll see. Okay. Yeah, there's a huge list of people here. So the abstract says, this article presents framework guidelines for the care of adolescent trans people and non-binary people experiencing gender dysphoria and or gender incongruence. Developed by a multidisciplinary expert panel, so already very different to the UK's CAS review, which was developed by a single person with absolutely no expertise at all. I should center this more, shouldn't I? These guidelines aim to address the complex medical, psychological, and social needs of this diverse population. So, like, in the opening sentence, you know this is going to be better than the CAS review because it's done by people who know what they're talking about, and they seem to care about the people they're researching. The document emphasizes the importance of individualized, affirmative care that respects autonomy, identity, and the rights of adolescents. It outlines best practices for psychiatric, psychological, and sexological assessment, criteria and protocols for the gender-affirming hormonal interventions and puberty suppression, and ethical considerations for medical decision-making. So, whenever you're arguing with transphobic dickheads, one of the things they will often bring up is like, well, how do we know which kids are trans and how do we not know? Like, well, that means we need to ban all trans healthcare. Like, well, have you looked at the guideline? Like, this is not hidden information. Poland's just published this, but they're not like the first country in the world to do it. They just write their fucking guidelines and recommendations and the criteria, diagnosis criteria and stuff down. It's experts study this. They've been doing this for decades. I mean, what do you think it is? Just someone just making it up as they go along? Like, I mean, no, we know that's what the anti-trans movement are doing, but Anyway, the guidelines advocate for comprehensive support systems, including family involvement and multidisciplinary team collaboration, while addressing co-occurring mental health and neurodiversity. Man, this sounds amazing. Can you imagine? I certainly never had any of this from the NHS. The NHS are just like, here is a therapist who will lie about you to the doctor, and here is a doctor who thinks that, it's still 1955. And that's it. There's a multidisciplinary team. One of them doesn't give a fuck, and the other one doesn't like you, and that's it. Yeah, let's hope that Poland implements this. The article also highlights global perspectives on gender-affirming care, comparing practices and policies across countries to provide a contextualized approach and aligns with international standards while addressing local, legal, and healthcare frameworks. The proposed care model is designed to enhance the mental and physical well-being of adolescents, reduce stigma, and improve the overall quality of life. This work serves as a vital resource for healthcare professionals, policymakers, and advocates seeking to advance equitable, effective, and compassionate care for gender diverse youths. So I'll try and link to all of this stuff in all the descriptions. But it's interesting they pointed about this international stuff. So maybe let's see what they say about our very own, the UK's CAS review. So here's a little section on the UK. Sorry, I'm going to be reading some more stuff out, but it's only a little short bit left. In the UK, the only centre providing care for adolescents with gender dysphoria was closed down. The aim of such an action was to decentralise it into smaller clinics across the country. In practice, although hormonal interventions before 18 are not arbitrarily prohibited, their availability has been temporarily limited due to the lack of new designated facilities. The above changes, criticised by WPATH, which is the World Professional Organisation for Trans Health or something, which is a collaboration by international experts on trans healthcare, by the way. Like when you say, "Oh, this is the authority on trans healthcare," I think transphobes often hear, "This is the evil cabal of people." Whatever. These are literally all the people who have dedicated their lives to this and study this, and who actually are looking at the actual evidence and are meeting up with each other to have debates and discussions, like actual debates, actual scientific debates, to come up with guidelines based on evidence which are best for trans people, which is the complete opposite of everything that the anti-trans movements want to do. Anyway, these things were criticised by WPATH from the beginning, were caused by the publication of an interim report by Dr. Hilary Cass, including the preliminary findings of an NHS commissioned analysis of the quality care for gender diverse adolescents. The full report was made public in the spring of 2024, although it was initially intended to be related to the organisation of healthcare in England and Wales. It caused a stir in public opinion and immediate harsh criticism from the medical and patient communities worldwide. Very true. You'd never hear that from the British media or British politicians, but that is true. A detailed discussion of the document, comprising several hundred pages, goes beyond the scope of the guidelines. These guidelines we're reading. However, the author's concentration mainly on the absence of high-quality research on minors with gender dysphoria and her lack of clinical experience indicate the low scientific value and credibility of this report. Thank you. It's good to see. It's obviously good to see Poland do their own review. Great. And it's also good to see people in general talking about the CAS review and calling out for what it is. But it's great to see something so official, backed by so many experts, directly calling out the CAS review, the CAS scandal, and saying this thing is fucking trash. This is pretty harsh. This is really brutal for a scientific publication. The low scientific value and credibility of the report. Get fucked. But yeah, anyway, this is good news from Poland. Thank you very much to the people on this list for doing the right thing. But also, we have another good piece of good news from Poland. The Polish Supreme Court issues landmark ruling simplifying the process for changing legal gender. This is pretty cool. Poland is not the best country in Europe for LGBT rights or women's rights. They have, I think, the strictest anti-abortion laws in the entire of Europe. They don't have gay marriage, and up until very recently, changing legal sex gender for trans people was very difficult, and in fact was completely ridiculous. Like I remember reading about this, but I've forgotten how insane it was. So the rule, like, okay, if you're in Poland, you're probably like, yeah, okay, this was, we know all about this. We were trying to tell everyone else about how crazy it was for ages. But what they used to have to do, as we'll find out in a second from this, complete mental. In a landmark ruling for people in Poland, the Supreme Court has issued a resolution declaring that someone wishing to change their officially recognized gender no longer needs to involve the parents in the case. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But, you know, it's not that crazy. Up until now, people who wanted to change their gender have had to sue their parents to do so, even if they are adults. The practice made the process more difficult than... What? Just... Like, it turns out that in order to... They didn't have a legal system, and there wasn't any laws about it, and it was like a legal workaround where they're like, oh, well, you know, we can make a ruling based on someone suing someone, so that's just going to be what you have to do. So it says here, the reason that people have had to sue their parents to change gender is because Polish law currently does not specifically outline any procedure for doing so. That has left courts to develop their own ad hoc way of regulating the issue. So it's like a workaround, but like, man, it just sounds pretty crazy. But yeah, they ruled that you don't have to do that, so that's good. How exactly that's gonna come out in practice, I don't know. But yeah, that's definitely positive. So congratulations, Poland, on the progress. So you've had two good things in quick succession. Obviously, the right wing have said all the same fucking science-denying bullshit that you always get. Polish law should not adapt to ideological absurdities, but should be based on reality. If it was based on reality, then trans people would be recognised by the law and would have legal protections and would be able to change their sex markers. So you don't actually want that. You don't want reality. You want some ridiculous Donald Trump bullshit where everything is an easy kids ABC binary, my first biology textbook style thing. But yeah, good work, Poland, but you still have a long way to go. As this notes, Poland has been ranked the worst country in the EU for LGBT people for the 5th year in a row. Bad times. But hopefully this is 2 small steps on the way to positive change for Poland across the way. Nice work. Poland good, Thailand great, UK poor, USA poo on trans folks. I mean, the direction of travel, yes, but the current everyday realities, no. Of those listed, the UK definitely has the best trans rights out of like across the whole country, out of Poland, Thailand, the USA, and the UK. In Thailand, they can't change their legal sex marker at all, and they've only just been able to get access to trans healthcare for free. The USA has a huge range. They have some places where they've informed consent and they have good protections, and they have other places where they literally have no regulations at all, or really strong anti-trans regulations. Poland is pretty bad for LGBT people. But yeah, certainly the way things are moving. Oh, we've got a Sean Maths thing here. should I subject people in the stream to some Sean maths? Thank you very much, Sean, for the £5 donation. I'm going to read it out. Then we're going to move on to two more things, which are both going to be... One's going to be a rant at J.K. Rowling, and one's going to be the transvestigation. Hang in there, everyone. Maybe I'll cover one more thing too, actually. But Sean says, pick natural S and T both from 1 to n, then the probability the greatest common divisor of S and T tends to 6 over pi squared as n tends to infinity. 6 over pi squared. Okay, I gotta know how pi ends up in that. Thanks, Sean, for melting everyone in chat's brain. Yeah, let's do some more bad news, then we'll do the two kind of fun things. So, the Iowa governor has signed a bill removing gender identity from state civil rights protections. The move is the first time a state has removed a protected class from a state law prohibiting discrimination. So, like, actively, so here is the dickhead who did it, Iowa government Kim Reynolds. But literally, they have made it legal to discriminate against trans people in this state. Just such an explicit removal of trans people's human rights. Like, it's not like they've removed all discrimination protections because they think discrimination protections are bad. This is specifically targeted at trans people. And the reason I wanted to talk about this, obviously, is it's news and it's terrible and scary for people in Iowa. But for the entire time that I have been campaigning for trans rights, every time you say anything about trans rights, some dickhead in the replies would be like, what rights don't trans people have? What rights are people trying to take away from trans people? You're being hyperbolic. And lots of the time, these people are stupid and they just don't like trans people. They've never engaged in this topic before and they're instantly confrontational and they just want to say something and be annoying to you. But lots of the time, they're lying and they know full well what's the answer to their question. If you pressure them, I've done this literally hundreds of times. They'll be like, what right do people try to take away from trans people? And then you say, do you want to ban trans people from using the toilet at work? And they'll be like, I don't want to ban trans people. And you're like, do you think me, Katie Montgomery, a trans woman, should be able to use women's toilets at work? And they'll say, no, biological male, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, so right. So you acknowledge today that the law says trans people can use the right facilities for them. And you publicly admit that you want to take that away. You want to change the law to stop that from being true. That thing that's been true longer than I've been alive. But just 10 minutes ago, you were being like, people aren't trying to take away trans people's rights. You were just lying. You know you were lying. And you were doing it in order to push back against what I'm saying or just waste my time or to try and sell this idea to the wider public that all trans people are hysterical and there's no real attack on their rights at all. And they've been doing this for, the entire time. And I'm sure this is true for every single civil rights movement that, every single group of people pushing for any human rights, there's always some prick there pretending that they don't know what's going on and just trying to suggest that you're being hyperbolic when in actual fact they know full well what's happening. But some people fall for this stuff and the media there are at least some people who seem to publicly fall for it. Like, there is no clearer example than the stuff that's happening in the USA right now. They are firing LGBT people from government positions just for being LGBT. They're removing discrimination protections. Like, you can say, oh, I'm not sure, maybe we should ban, 16-year-old girls from playing netball at school because biological blah, blah. Like, you might be able to convince yourself that what you're saying isn't some bigoted position. But removing discrimination protections from trans people? I mean, There's literally just saying you can now legally discriminate against trans people solely because they are trans. So that is just unambiguously removing people's rights. And you've got to decide if you support that and you think that is a good thing, or you don't support that and you think that is a bad thing. And if you don't support that and you think that's a bad thing, then great, you're on the right side. Like, you have some level of moral awareness. You're a human like me. But why would you, like, up until now, maybe been like, oh, it's all overblown, trans people are so hysterical. It's happening, okay? This stuff that we've been saying for, like, decades. Oh, they're coming for this. They're going to try and remove these rights. It's happening in front of our eyes right now. They're trying to remove trans people's existence from every single, like, official government view, like from laws and stuff. But they're also trying to make it legal to harm us. They're trying to encourage people to do that. So you have to now accept that we were right all along. Like, I don't need you to come groveling. I don't even need you to apologize. I just need you to realize that, oh, okay, you know, they were saying that the anti-trans movement is going to take away the human rights, and it's actually happening in the USA. We can see that, oh, okay, yes, trans people were right about that. The thing they've been shouting about for the last X years has slowly, step by step, in order, come true exactly as they said it would. And quite likely it's going to keep going. And so probably everything they're saying about their other rights is also true. And that was true for the people in the USA, so it's probably true for people in the UK too. Can you just now, like, you don't need to, like, apologize, you don't need to kneel and grovel. Can you just fucking wake up and realize that this is what's happening? That they're actually, it's true. They are trying to take away all rights that trans people have. Like, this document that the gender critical movement made, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever, the WDI declaration, they laid this out. It's like the gender critical movement's Project 2025. Okay, they just wrote this document and they said, we're going to try and remove these protections. We're going to try and remove the healthcare. We're going to try and make it so the government doesn't recognize trans people at all. A load of people signed it, including like Richard Dawkins and J.K. Rowling and stuff. None of them media reported on it. Whenever you brought it up, there was like, oh, you're being hyperbolic. Like, Dr. Kathleen Stock doesn't want to remove your human rights. Yes, she does. Yes, all these fucking freaks who signed it do want to remove your human rights. They're not protesting against this stuff. They were signing documents calling for this stuff years ago. Their movement is the one pushing for this stuff. They're the ones giving the language and arguments to all of the Republicans and the people in the UK and other countries that are trying to do it. And it's actually happening. So, can you just fucking act like what's happening is actually happening and just do something about it? Or at least stop fucking asking, oh, but what rights don't trans people have? Trans people in Iowa don't have protections against discrimination simply for existing. That's a right they don't have. In the UK, I do have that right. In some other countries, they don't. In some other countries, trans people have no legal right to exist at all, and there is a death penalty on trans people existing. You could find that out by just Googling it. You could just be like, which countries have the death penalty for being trans? Come up with a list. There's like 5 of them or something. Now you know. There are lots of people who hate trans people so much that it's their entire personality, and all they want to do is completely eradicate us from Earth. And if you don't believe that, then you do not have a rational position on trans people's human rights. You're incapable of rationally analysing what is going on. You're too uninformed to make an argument in this space. And until you go away and accept the reality of what is going on around the world, then you can shut up and fuck off. Right. We're going to do a dunk first. I know it's not necessarily positive, but everyone likes dunking on J.K. Rowling, and she is fucking stupid, like unbelievably. Okay, so we're going to look at this tweet. Remember Twitter? So Thomas Willett said 2 days ago, trans women are women. Okay, yeah, true. Uncontroversial fact. But He then elaborates. When we say trans women are women, we're not saying that they're the same as cis women. Yep. No two women or men are the same. Concepts of womanhood and manhood evolve across times, place, and culture. What we mean is that trans women are valid and deserving of recognition as women. Yes, Thomas is completely correct. I mean, just like if I said left-handed women are women, I wouldn't be saying they're the same as right-handed women. I'm just saying both left-handed women and right-handed women are women, right? That's like very, like a child could understand that. Obviously, left-handed women and right-handed women aren't the same because the left-handed ones, get this, aren't right-handed. And the right-handed ones, they're not left-handed. It's just so basic that I feel like explaining this like simple understanding of how sets work, it's just like insane. But J.K. Rowling is so fucking stupid. She doesn't understand that. She thinks that Thomas writing this is some big dunk and like moment and some reveal and always. She says, for years now, you and your ilk, gender critical people love the word ilk, have jackbooted. This is a Nazi reference. Who has Nazis turning up to their movements? Is it the trans people or is it the gender critical movement? It's the gender critical movement. Sorry, spoilers. You and your ilk have jackbooted around demanding that trans-identified men, she means trans women, of course, be treated in all respects and in all circumstances as identical to biological women. Even to mention physical difference was transphobic. So spare us the panicked attempts to backtrack. Backtrack? What the fuck are you talking about? How, like, her entire life, her entire personality, everything she exists to do is just campaign against trans people's rights. And somehow she's never encountered a trans person ever. Like, she's literally never... the amount of times I have said, well, trans women and cis women aren't the same, are they? Like, that's literally why we have different descriptors for them. Like, tall women and short women aren't the same, are they? Because some of them are tall and some of them are short. And that's literally why the adjectives that describe tall and short, fat and thin, old and young, trans and cis, that's literally where these words exist in order to attempt to describe the differences between these two roughly defined groups. That's like a core position. It's not like a core trans rights position. It's a basic human language, mathematical, like, sets position. It's like how the human brain categorizes things is if we have a big class of things, a set, and then we have subsets inside it, the subsets aren't the same as each other, but they're both members of the superset. Like, that is so basic. It's not even like, oh yeah, this is a feminist position. It's like a fucking year 6 child's position when they understand how numbers work. Like, it's the classic, all lions are cats, but not all cats are lions. Like, you know, you learn this when you're like 7, and she didn't apparently learn it, or is probably more likely is she would completely understand it if you wrote this exact thing about straight and gay. If you just did a find and replace and switched out trans and cis for straight and gay, she would understand it fully. But as soon as it's about trans people, her brain turns to goo and the mold takes over. As if he's panically backtracking. Like, what are you talking about? It's like the most basic vanilla explanation of reality. To even mention physical difference was trans... No, it's not. What are you talking about? What... It's just incredible that someone who, like, exists purely to have an opinion on trans people has done literally no... Not even... It's not like she's done no learning or not tried to educate you. Educate yourself. Like, it's like she's never even read a single tweet by a trans person. She's never had a 5-minute conversation with a trans person. She's never, like, bothered to even read the arguments of people pushing back against her. Like, I mean, obviously, I try to avoid replying to anyone on Twitter now because Twitter's just full for Nazis and J.K. Rowling. But I did, and there must be loads of people being like, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, I can scroll through all this bullshit, but She's not. I mean, has she not read it? Is she incapable of reading? Is she too stupid to understand what they're saying? Like, she might. This is a classic stupid or lying. I'm thinking stupid. Like, can you really not understand this concept? Like, what Thomas has written here is so trivial. Like, I really genuinely think a 6-year-old could understand this. And like, if there are any 6-year-olds watching and you're like, duh, I'm sorry for like demeaning you, because it's just so, what are you talking about? Why are you so stupid? And to like using some kind of like, jackbooted is obviously like commenting about LGBT people being Nazis or whatever. It's just so brazen. Like, the fucking Nazis are in charge in the USA and they're literally doing everything you want. All of this, like, oh, LGBT people are anti-freedom of speech, they're trying to censor people because they had a protest against, like, a hate preacher at a university. And then as soon as a gender-critical person gets in charge, they start firing people, removing words from websites, banning books, like, actually doing actual censorship. When the real fucking sig-hailing Nazis show up to scuffles about trans rights, they're not showing up on the trans side, are they? They're showing up on the Kelly J. Keane, Posey Parker side. They're showing up on the J.K. Rowling side. They're holding their banners that say "Destroy pedo freaks." When they say that, they're talking about trans people. It's just like, she is genuinely stupid. We've seen like the amount of times that she's written some tweet like, basically trying to dunk on trans people, but just writing a description of herself without having any realization at all. It just, like, there's too many instances of it for me to think that she's just lying. Like, someone was pointing out on Blue Sky that for being the most prominent gender critical, she has done like nothing for gender critical ideology or gender critical theory. She's done like gender critical apologetics. Like, if you think about all the other like big gender criticals, lots of them come up with new arguments, new lies. Like, even Graham Linehan comes up with new things. Like, new things. I mean, everything he says is just, rehashed homophobia or something, just with the words find and replaced. But they still come up with new little bits of law. They make up new lies about trans people. They try and make arguments. They try and like progress something. All J.K. Rowling does is write stuff, like the same generic like gutter arguments from the gender critical anonymous accounts from 2016, but just to 700,000 people or whatever. How many followers? No, she's got 14 million followers, hasn't she? Yeah. Like, she hasn't contributed anything. She hasn't made any stunning arguments. Like, the essay that she wrote was just a collation of other people's thoughts, and then she just done that like one thing, and now she just writes out stupid tweets like this, and that's like her full life. I just don't think she's knows what she's doing at all. I literally just think she hates trans people, and she just blindly parrots all the stuff that she's that caused her brain to melt in the first place, and that's it. There's just nothing else going on in there. Like, I just can't imagine. Like, sometimes gender critical people make arguments, and I'm like, okay, the argument they've made here is in itself logically consistent, and I know what argument they're trying to make, and it's actually not straightforward to dismantle it. And it happens that you need to know that they're basing it on these two premises, and one of them is actually based on something which isn't true, and it contradicts this other part. Like, you sometimes have to deconstruct it. But like, in order to approach these arguments, the first thing you need to do is understand the actual argument they're making in order to be able to deconstruct it. Like, the position that trans people are in is we have to address every single anti-trans argument. Like, they have so much media attention that we have to directly learn what they're saying, understand which bits of it are logically contradictory, which bits of it are just completely fabricated, which bit are based on prejudice. You have to learn all of this like background for all of it all, and then come at the argument in a way which deconstructs it and shows people what they're saying is wrong. The transphobes don't have to do that at all. They have no like evolutionary pressure on their arguments because they don't face any scrutiny. None of this matters to them. It's not important to them. I mean, it's important to them in their entire personality, but like it doesn't affect them. So they can just write this fucking absolute trash. Like, imagine, right, okay, all right, just imagine you hate Thomas Willett and you hate trans people, and you're like, I'm gonna try and deconstruct this and shoot a hole in it. The weakness is not in misunderstanding set theory. Like, the weakness is in what he's saying here isn't, oh, what? So you're saying that all cats are lions and all lions are cats? Like surely you'd be like, concepts of womanhood and manhood evolve across times, place, and culture. Like this is the bit that gender critical should be attacking. Like, I understand. I've talked to so many gender criticals. I know what the like advanced apologists would say. The ones who are like have some kind of understanding of gender critical ideology. This is the bit you go for. You could say, yes, society's understanding of, actually no, they wouldn't ever say that. You would say, regardless of what people thought, the truth of biological sex underlying society's understanding has always remained the same. And then we can have an argument about biology, which is much more difficult for the average person on the street to understand what's going on. Or you could attack this second bit and say, just because, like, even if you accept the first two bits, you could say, so what, it evolves across time. That doesn't mean that trans women are deserving of legal recognition. That's another attack angle. Like, they're both stupid. They're both wrong. I can't call them stupid in the face of this, but like, the fact is that gender critical people are wrong about biology, but also it doesn't really matter what the biology is when we're talking about addressing misogynistic sexism. If society's concept of women includes some or all trans women, which it undeniably does whether you agree with that or not, then that's the group that need to be protected from how society views them when it does so negatively. And if you don't believe that trans women or trans people are deserving of legal recognition, then you need to make an argument why and explain why you accept that trans people face discrimination, but they shouldn't be supported by the government or whatever. Like, these are more complicated arguments, but to just come in with like not understanding how fucking words work, not understand. She's a professional writer and she doesn't know what adjectives are. Like, just unbelievable. Like, stupid, lying, both. You tell me in the comments, but on this one, I'm saying stupid. Everyone loves J.K. Rowling. Did you? Right. I don't know if Thomas is trans or not. No idea. And if I did know, I wouldn't tell you anyway. But no, that's not. I actually don't know, and that might make it sound like I do know, and he is, and it's a secret. No, I literally have no idea. I don't really know him. But talking of J.K. Rowling, did you all watch the Kaylin Conrad video, debunking the claim that she's like a rags to riches, as poor as it's possible to be without being homeless? If you don't know who Kaylin Conrad is, you should YouTube them straight after this video, after this next dunk, which is going to be great. Oh, we're going to look at something funny. And you should watch all their videos. But you should definitely watch the J.K. Rowling one, because it's good. Yeah, all Kaylin's videos are good. See, obviously me and Kaylin are rivals because we're both like trans people doing the same thing. No, we're not actually rivals, we're friends. But the advantage my channel has over Kaylin's channel is obviously everything they do is way better researched, looks nicer, is presented better, is like scripted. But they release like one video every 16 years or something, and I'm doing one a day. So that's why you should subscribe to me and choose unsubscribe to Kaylin, because waste of time. No, you should definitely go check it out if you don't know it already. Anyway, we're going to talk about the best thing, my favorite type of transphobia, we're going to talk about some transvestigations. So if you don't know what transvestigation is where a transphobic person picks a cis person. Oh my goodness, my voice is dying again. 1 second. Sometimes I get like something stuck on my vocal cords and then I can't talk anymore. Anyway, if you don't know what transvestigation is, it's where a transphobic person picks a cis person and is convinced that they are trans. And it's not just like, oh, I think that person is... I mean, I guess the most basic form is, oh, I think that person's trans. Like the classic is all of the like racist transphobe, they're often racist. All the one we're going to see in a second is racist. All of the like racist transphobic people have decided that Michelle Obama is secretly a man. You know, they all think she's a trans woman, because they're delusional and hate people different to them. But that's like base level transvestigation. It's where you look at someone you don't like and you accuse them of being trans because you think accusing people of being trans is bad. But like that's you know, that's like entry level transvestigation. Some transvestigators, there are some good ones. They do like zooming in on photos. They do like drawing lines and circling bits and doing videos comparing how they walk and all this stuff. Some of them do like multiple videos a week, going through, zooming in on like specific photos of people, and pretty much everyone ever is trans, according to them. There are the real pros, the top tier transvestigators. They have their own little terminology and everything. They call trans people gender inverts, or just inverts, and they believe that that like every single celebrity and mainstream person is trans. Like, or literally, they believe all of it, and they think this is some big conspiracy to take over the world or whatever. And they're amazing. I know that they're probably dangerous for trans people, and they're like insane, and they're like genocidal sometimes, but they're just so crazy. You just gotta love it. So the one we're gonna look at now, there's some amazing stuff here. So it's gonna get even more crazy. But this one, Freedom of Truth Updates, they're always called something like that. Freedom of Truth Updates thinks that President Zelensky of Ukraine is a trans man. And they say, of course, and I did mention they are genocidal and racist. So he says, as MAGA, we protect our biological family, but we also protect our MAGA family. If there was a button that erased every trans from existence, Lord knows I would press it. Lord knows I would press it. We all would. And then we have this one doing something with Zelensky, and they've got identifying a radical Jew, like some racist. It's always really extreme. But then there's got some like jawline stuff that always zooming in, like the skull differences. I don't know what I don't know what this guy is, but they're trying to do some signs and stuff. They love doing this. I feel like I actually know the transvestigator who probably drew the original of this, but I'm not gonna shout them out. And when I say I know them, I mean I know which Twitter account is behind this. I don't know the person in real life, because they're probably fucking mental and they probably want me dead. But they love superimposing skulls over people. I mean, what does this mean? Look, the top the top of the skull doesn't even touch the top of his head. Like, you can see the cheekbone here, and you can see his cheek out on the side. I just love it so much. Then they always love hands. Like, this is meant to be a female hand, a female left hand. I mean, the only difference here is one has long nails and the other one's bigger. Oh, it's just so good. I just love it. And then we, of course, we always have that they love Q angle. Q angle is like, if you know what a Q angle is, you've either watched this channel or one of the other trans channels that talks about this, or you are fucking mental, because no one else knows what a Q angle is. Females must walk differently due to they have wait. Females must walk differently due to the Q angle they have. The feet become aligned as the female walks. The female, one foot in front of the other. So they always do this. Is classic transvestigation stuff. If you've not seen it before, they always have like stills of people walking, and obviously when you like from different angles, when you walk, like you could kind of make it look like anything, and this is proof that Zelensky. They always walking stairs, up and down stairs. That's the real transvestigation people. They know that. That's how you find a trans person. You got to see someone walking up and down stairs. And here is Zelensky on the stairs, which apparently proves it. I mean, this is Tom Brady. Their example of their example of a trans man is Tom Brady, which they're comparing to Zelensky here. And they've got 3 other celebrities. If your knees are together, if there's a photo of you ever with your knees together as you walk down the stairs, you are a man. And if there is ever a photo with your knees apart, you are female. Notice man and female, not man and woman, not male and female. Yeah, then we've got some Q angle bullshit. Anyway, this is pretty crazy. You know, Zelensky is trans, but I assumed that sorry, I know what's coming. I assumed every politician has probably been transvestigated by one of these wackos before, but the reason I found this person is they've been transvestigating Shrek. So, subliminal feminization of children's media, part 6. So they've been drawing lines. I don't even know what this is meant to represent. Like the triangle they've drawn is like, and then they've put look at the male skull. As if that's what men's skulls look like. Oh, it's just so good. So Shrek originally was a cis man, and now Shrek is a devious trans man and should be eliminated from this earth by the MAGA. Just one of my favorite things. They just love doing this thing. They're like, right, okay, this is proof enough for anyone, right? We put 2 photos side by side, okay? Then we'll draw some shapes over the top of these things. So this one goes over the edge of the inner eye, and this one doesn't quite reach the inner eye. So that actually probably we could just interchange these shapes entirely. Then we just put some other like other lines. I mean, this one, the man's meant to have a really short forehead. And this, look at the shape of these skulls. This is so good. How are these meant to be male and female skulls? So good. But then in this picture of Shrek, he's like leaning back, so of course he's got a shorter forehead. And then this one he's leaning forward. And then, yeah, so you picked some pictures of skull, and then you just have a screenshot from like a textbook, which is really low resolution, and it just says things like larger mastoid processes, smooth, more vertical frontal bone, and this now is evidence. Shrek is trans, locked in. I haven't looked at this enough to know if I can. I mean, all of these people are usually anti-Semitic, so I'm a bit hesitant to scroll through and. But I wonder if they think Elon Musk is trans. No, they love Elon Musk. Okay, that's. Oh man, it's just so good. A female head shape. Look, he can't be male because when they put the which skull of they've put this one on wonky. Oh, it's just so good. Anyway, now you know. President Zelensky is trans. Shrek is trans. Your mum's trans. Your dad's trans. Trump is trans. Biden was trans. Everyone's trans, and we're going to take over the world. And that is why you should buy Dogecoin or something. Is usually the. Actually, I don't know. These people aren't often particularly Bitcoiny, but sometimes. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this week's show. And I hope everyone is doing well. And I hope I've covered enough topics to do 6 videos for the week. I can't even remember how many I've covered now. I will be here next week. I was just going to look at my calendar, actually. I'm finding out live and air. I should already plan this. Yeah, I'm going to be here for the next 2 weeks. 3 weeks. But in 1 month, I'm having a holiday. So I've got to do some extra videos in order to fill the gap when I'm away. And I thought I should start thinking about that now. So but maybe before I end the show, I know we had a little discussion earlier from someone in chat who I do appreciate sending their concerns, and I hope I didn't come across too not moderate. But does anyone else have a super chat question, or maybe just a non-super chat question that I could answer and make into a video from when I'm away on holiday? If you don't, that's fine. But if you do, if you wanted to ask me a question about trans rights, now is the time. Because I'm not going to be on Transatlantic show for a little while longer yet. I'm actually the reason they do it on Thursdays, because at the time, when we were setting it up, Thursday was the only day I had free. And now I don't have Thursdays free, so that's currently the reason why I'm not on that show. At least last time I talked to Arden, they wanted me back. Maybe she's sick of me now, but I'd love to go back, and I just like doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, Thursdays aren't good for me at the moment, so we'll see. Yeah, where am I going? I'm not telling anyone where I'm going. I'll tell you once I get back. But I've decided the safest thing to do for me is to avoid explicitly announcing my destination. I think probably you should always do that, but especially if you're a woman or a trans person on the internet, and especially if you have more than like 10,000 followers or something on any platform, then you start getting haters. Maybe not 10,000. I think maybe more like 25 on Twitter was when I started having like dedicated haters. But yeah. Do I think that the USA is headed to a revolution or fall or what? Yeah, it's not really a trans question, but I don't know if the USA is going to have like a civil war or something. I fucking hope not. But I do think that this is the USA in decline as the world's main superpower, and it probably, I mean, it's not going to be true forever. Like, Rome was a world superpower for a huge amount of time, and that no longer is. So, you know, the UK was once the world superpower, and it no longer is. So it won't be forever, and maybe in our lifetime. I mean, our lifetimes is definitely watching the start of the decline, and maybe it's going to come a lot faster than we thought, because if all this tariff stuff happens and the dollar stops being the world's like default currency, then the USA is going to be in trouble very fast. So I don't know. But what I do know about is trans rights in the USA is going to get worse for a little bit, but they can't fight science forever. Of course, if the country just collapses and becomes some kind of authoritarian hellhole like Russia or something, then they can fight science for a long time. But in general, if humans survive the climate apocalypse, then eventually we'll get there. What are trans rights in the smaller British overseas territories, specifically the Virgin Islands, Bermuda, St. Helena, Ascension Island. I don't know. So when I was picking out my upcoming holiday destination, like where is safe? I'm very fortunate to be able to go abroad for go abroad. I sound super middle class there. Very fortunate to be able to visit other countries. I've been to quite a few other countries, and when I have been to countries in the past, I have always thought like, is this safe? But I've been more concerned about whether it's like safe to just be existing in public. I think now, just because of how intense things are getting, I've been more careful about it, and it factored more into my decision than maybe it had before. But one thing I think when I'm choosing where I think is safe to go, it's very easy to go on the internet and be like, is it safe to go to Turkey? Is it safe to go to, Poland or something? And then you see the stuff like, oh, they have no trans rights there at all, and and the government recently persecuted someone, and you're like, okay, that country is not safe at all. Fuck that, I'm not going there. And then you do that for all of them, and lots of them aren't great. But you've got to remember that when you're there for like 1 week or a few days, your experience will be very different to someone who is living there. But also, if you are living in one of these countries, trans people do live in these countries, and they exist, and they have happy lives, and they love people, and they are successful. And sure, they face government oppression and are more likely to be attacked and stuff, but it doesn't stop them existing. It doesn't stop them in living their lives, and hopefully it doesn't stop them enjoying their lives. And so you've got to remember, like, I often see, like, particularly before Trump and stuff, you would see Americans being like, oh, never go to holiday in the UK, it's way too dangerous for trans people. And it almost seems like one of these, like, the things the right-wing people say, where they're like, oh, never go to the UK because they have Muslim-only no-go zones and stuff. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? Like, obviously it's not that bad, and shouldn't really compare them, but, like, the UK is, today, 2025, had to look at the year on the calendar then, is a perfectly safe and decent holiday destination for someone who wants to go on holiday, who's a trans person. Like, yeah, we have a terrible media, and we don't have as many trans rights as we should do, and hate crimes are up like 5-fold, which is terrifying. But also, like, I live here and my friends live here, and we have pretty good, safe lives. I mean, safer than a lot of countries. But even though hate crimes have gone up 5 times, that doesn't mean like you'll come here and you will get hate crimed. Like, I've had, I guess, 3 hate crimes, which isn't great, but that's like over a decade plus. And yeah, so I try and think, like, if I read this about the UK, would I feel like I could still go there? And often the answer is yes, so I just do. And maybe I've just got lucky, but also most people aren't transphobic. Even when I didn't, like, pass very well at all, I went to a bunch of countries, like Spain, France, Germany, Japan, Taiwan, and all of those were great, and everyone I encountered was really nice, and it was really worth going, and I'm glad that I wasn't too scared to go. And so I want to keep visiting countries within reason. There are definitely ones I don't think I would go to because I wouldn't feel safe. Like the USA now, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm being like one of these people as well, but yeah. I can stealth. I don't know if I can stealth anywhere, to be honest. I just assume everyone can always tell that I'm trans wherever I go, because otherwise I go mad, like, worrying about it. But yeah. Oh my god, can you please post the Shrek investigation? I want to keep it forever. Yes, I will. Oh, you mean post the The actual screenshots and stuff. I'll do both. I'll do both. Yeah, didn't get any questions in super chat. How disappointing. You'll have to think of something next week. Have I ever been to Iceland? No, I haven't. Okay, I'm gonna answer this, and we're gonna end it. The reason. Okay, this is summer propaganda. All right. I would like to go to Norway and Iceland, and I've never been to Ireland even. The problem is, when I think about going on holiday, I think, do I want to go somewhere with worse weather than England or better weather than England? And I never want to go somewhere with worse weather. I would love to go to Iceland. It looks beautiful. Norway looks incredible. But in the summer, I think. And the problem is usually in the summer I'm at music festivals. So one day I will go to Iceland. And if you're Icelandic, your country looks beautiful and the people seem really nice. But I'm not going to go there in the winter. Oh, Jade says they asked a question. Did you? I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I was probably in a rant. Let me see if I can scroll up. I have probably missed a super chat. Yes. Sorry, Jade. I have seen it. A very kind donation from Jade. £5. How much will having MX on documents affect getting a GRC? And if I change them now, will I have to wait another 2 years before applying? I don't think so. I don't know why having MX on your documents would affect getting a GRC or not. So for anyone who doesn't know, a GRC is a gender recognition certificate. And it's something you can get in the UK to basically update your birth certificate. And it gets you a few corner case legal rights. It's worth doing. I recommend it. But it's a fucking hassle. So the order that I did things in is I changed my name first, which you can do for free. Do not spend money in the UK on changing your name. DM me if you don't know how. Then I started changing it with things like my bank and the doctor's surgery and stuff. And then I changed my passport and then my driving license. Because you can do those by self-ID. And then I think I did most of that even before I finished coming out at work and stuff. So then I changed my stuff at work. And the GRC was the last thing I did because it just took. I wanted to do it because you have to submit evidence of your genitals and stuff to them. I wanted to be done with all the medical transition before even trying to apply to it. And then when I did, it got denied the first time because the doctor spelt something. No, misordered a sentence, even though it was obvious what he was saying, and they didn't count that. But I don't think having your documents changed would affect that, because I mine were changed, and you include as part of your evidence your deed poll, which says about your name change, and you include scans of your various identity documents and things, so they know what your old name and honorific was, and they know what your current one is. So yeah, I don't think you should wait, and I don't think you should worry about it affecting it. But I don't know for sure. I'm not quite sure what your worry is. I hope that answers your question. My advice to anyone is if you're considering getting a GRC, or you're coming up to the point where you want to, I would just start getting on that right now, because it takes fucking forever to amass all the paperwork, and they could easily deny it completely for arbitrary reasons, and I think you probably want to do it before either Labour becomes even worse or Reform gets voted in. Anyway, that's my non-official legal advice. That's not legal advice, trans person advice. But anyway, that's going to be the end of the stream. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching it. And we'll see you all same time next week, 8 p.m. UK time. Oh my god, I didn't press start recording. No, I have to download this video in low quality. Why am I such a dickhead? Anyway, so annoying. I do need to write a checklist. I'm going to write a fucking checklist. Anyway, see you.